All right, hi guys. So we are going to be going over your opinion performance task, which is going to be your writing test. For Wednesday, you guys are going to be answering questions one, two, and three. Now, these aren't going to be scored, but they are going to help you guys understand what you're going to be writing about on Thursday and Friday. So it's important that you guys do it. So your task is you guys are going to end up writing an essay about which animal you think is the most unique. And I want you guys to choose either the panda or the giant squid. So we're going to be reading about both of them, and then you're going to give me your opinion on what you think is the more unique animal. Okay? So that's what you're going to do. So let me go ahead and read you guys the two stories, and then we're going to answer the questions. I'll explain the writing a little bit, and then we'll go over it more on Thursday and Friday. Source number one, a big underwater mystery. Long ago, sailors told stories about a sea monster in the deep ocean. It had huge arms that looked like snakes. If ships disappeared, sailors blamed the sea monster. As years passed, some of these strange monsters washed up on ocean shores. After spending their lives deep in the ocean, their large bodies eventually drifted to land. Curious scientists began studying the bodies. They realized the sea monsters were actually giant squids. A hidden home. The giant squid does not attack boats, but it does live in deep seas. It swims far below the surface where little light reaches. Its cold, dark home hides the squid well. That is why it's difficult to learn its secrets. Understanding body clues. However, studying the squid's body did give scientists some clues. For example, the squid has big eyes. They are the size of dinner plates. With such eyes, the squid can see well in the dark. It can skillfully hunt for fish. Now, we're going to pause right there. Oops, sorry, guys. One second. So for this one, what we're going to be doing is we are going to start highlighting some important words that we found in the story. Now, remember, we have to figure out what we think is going to help us find out which one is the more unique animal. So what makes the giant squid unique? Well, I would say that it has a history of being a sea monster. So I might even write sea monsters. They realized the sea monsters were giant squids. I'm going to highlight that because that's unique about them. People used to tell stories about these sea monsters, and they ended up being these large giant squids. Now, they do live in deep seas, and there's very little light there. So it's cold and it's dark, and it hides the squid well. So I'm going to highlight they live in deep seas where it's cold and dark, and their home hides the squid well. So they're very well hidden. That's unique about them. And then the next thing that we want to talk about is their big eyes. So we know that these squids have big eyes. And how big are they? The size of dinner plates. Man, that is humongous. That's like bigger than our faces. Okay. So they have very big eyes. And what can those eyes do? They can see well in the dark. And what would that help them do? It will help them hunt for fish. Okay, so right now already we've highlighted some important details about our giant squids. Now let's go ahead and continue to read. The scientists also looked at the squid's head, called a mantle. It has strong muscles. That means the squid can swim fast. The mantle also has fins to help the squid through the water. Last of all, the mantle has a sharp beak or mouth. In a flash, the squid can bite a fish into small pieces. The squid's arm offered hints about its life, too. It has 8 arms and 2 feeding arms, or tentacles. The tentacles are very long. They can shoot out like a net. With them, a sneaky squid can catch the fish that is 30 feet away. Ooh, so now we learned a little bit more about its arms and its head. So we know that the squid's head is called a mantle, and they're very strong. So because they have strong muscles, they can swim fast, and they have a sharp beak or mouth, which helps them bite fish into small pieces. So they can bite their fish. So now we know that they eat fish. We also learned about its arms. It has 8 arms and 2 feeding arms, or we people call them tentacles. and they're very long. So their tentacles are long, very long. And then they can use them to catch fish. So we did highlight a few more things, but these are all important clues that help us understand the giant squid a little bit better. Spying on the squid. Scientists wanted to know, excuse me, more about the interesting creature. One man, Clyde Roper, tried a new trick. He placed some special cameras on some sperm whales. The whales live in the same deep waters as squids. Roper hoped the cameras might record a squid. Instead, the movies just showed how whales feed. Next, Roper put a camera on a small machine. From a boat, he guided the machine with a computer. The machine dove down 2,400 feet. However, it did not find a squid. So scientists have always wanted to know more about them. So Clyde Roper tried these things, but did they work? No, they didn't. Now, that's really cool that we're learning that people are trying to learn more about the squid, but they haven't actually learned anything yet. So that's an interesting piece of information, but that's not going to tell us how squids are how they're interesting or unique. You might say that, because they lived in the dark, deep ocean, that they can hide well and then, they keep their secrets well hidden. So you can say something about that, but you can learn that from just knowing more about the squid and where it lives. Success at last. A woman named Edith Witter had another idea. She thought about the squid's big eyes. Perhaps the camera's bright lights frightened the squid away. To fix that problem, she made a camera that used a dim red light. Witter and some other Wider and some other scientists tried her new camera. They lowered the machine deep into the ocean. On their second try, they watched a squid swim toward the camera. Its legs opened wide and grabbed the machine. Since that time, other cameras have also recorded that squid. Scientists are excited. Viewing the squid in its home offers the best information. For instance, they saw one squid's skin change colors. By using their machine, scientists hope they will discover many more of the squid's mysterious secrets. So now we learn about Edith Wider. And what she did was she created a camera that used a dim red light. And with that, they were able to see the giant squid. And what they learned about the giant squid was that the squid skin can change colors. And they want to use those machines to discover many more of the squid's mysterious secrets. So go ahead and highlight all those things. Now, again, if I am talking too fast, you guys can always pause this video since it is being recorded and you guys can watch it on your own time. I'm going to move on to source number 2. Now what we learned all about the squids, now we're going to learn about the pandas. And then after we read about the pandas, you're going to compare and you're going to be writing on Thursday and Friday about which you think is the most unique, okay? Source number 2, an uncommon treasure. 1,000 years ago, people in China sent the leader of Japan a gift. The unusual present was 2 giant panda bears. The animals only live in China, so few people had ever seen them. Americans did not meet their first panda until 1936. A woman, Ruth Harkness, visited China. Some explorers helped her find a cub. She brought the bear to a zoo in our country. People fell in love with the black and white bear. So we learned that it was pandas first came from China. So the animals only live in China. And these are called giant panda bears. Okay, and then let's learn more about them. A snowy, cold home. Pandas make their home in the mountains of China. Ooh, so now we know more about where they live. Bamboo trees grow on the hills. In the winter, snow covers the ground. Pandas like to wander through the thick, cold forests. Usually they live alone. So we learned that they live in their home is the mountains of China. We know that there's a lot of bamboo where they grow. We know that there's snow during the winter. And we know that the forests are thick and cold, and they usually live alone. Usually they live alone. An animal in danger. Over the years, some people hunted pandas. The people sold their furs for money. Slowly, the number of pandas dropped. At last, China passed laws to stop hunters. However, few pandas were left. So that could be interesting. People would hunt pandas for their fur, and that's no good. People wanted to a peek at panda life. People wanted to be sure that pandas survived. Because of this, certain zoos started to raise pandas. Today, about 300 pandas live in zoos. Okay, so we learned that there was a law. So China passed a law to stop hunters, and zoos started to raise the pandas. So now we know that there are 300 pandas living in those zoos. The zoo pandas give scientists a chance to study closely the bears. One zoo did tests to see what kind of bamboo plant does like best. Bamboo is a plant that is the panda's main food. They have an extra thumb that helps them hold the branches as they eat. Ooh, so that's interesting. So we know that bamboo is panda's main food. And we also know that they have an extra thumb so that they can hold the branches as they eat. The pandas munched their zoo lunch for about 16 hours a day. Their favorite choice was arrow bamboo. The scientists hope the information they learned from zoo pandas can help wild pandas. So the zoo pandas eat for 16 hours a day. That's a long time. And they like the arrow bamboo. Protected places. In China, reserves provide a safe home for pandas. Reserves are large areas of land set aside for animals. In the reserves, the scientists take care of pandas that need help. For example, they raise cubs without mothers. Scientists also study the reserve's pandas. For one project, scientists looked at how far pandas travel to eat. To do this, the scientists put special collars on certain bears. The collars gave off signals so the scientists could see where the bears went. The scientists learned that pandas often ate their food in one small area. Horses in the reserves ate bamboo in that place too. Scientists realized the bears might not have enough food. Okay, so they put them in reserves. So reserves are large areas of land set aside for animals. And so what would they do there? They would raise their cubs that maybe don't have their mothers. And they learned about how they also were able to learn that these bears might not have enough food to eat. Into the wild. One man, George Scholar, wanted to study the pandas in their mountain home. For several years, he tracked pandas in the forest. He measured how much bamboo they ate. In 2 years, he only saw a panda 16 times. The shy creature hid well. Scholar discovered one sad problem. People were hunting pandas. Because of his findings, China put more forests into laws guarding the bears. Today, about 1,600 pandas live in the mountains of China. Scientists continue to study them in different ways. They hope their new knowledge will help the number of pandas grow. So we learn about George, and he liked to study the pandas in the wild. So he tracked them for several years, but how many times did he see them in 2 years? In 2 years, he only saw a panda 16 times. So that's very, very little. And so we learned that they're very shy, so they hide very well. People are still hunting them, so China put more force into laws, which is good. So now we know that there are 1,600 pandas living in the mountains of China, and they want to help that number grow. So now we learned about the giant squid and the pandas. I'm going to go over questions 1, 2, and 3 really quickly because it's almost 11:50 for me right now. So a lot of you guys are trying to get into the waiting room. So draw lines and match the ideas with the supportive details. So we learned that animal bodies are different in ways that help the animals. So we learned that squids have big eyes that help them see in the dark, and pandas have an extra thumb. Those body parts help them to be able to see in the dark or to help them hold bamboo to eat. Some animals can be very, very hard to find. The reason why is because pandas live alone in the mountains, so it's very easy for them to stay hidden. And the squid live in deep and dark places, so it's very hard to get there and to see because it's so dark. Now, for this next part, it says you need to discuss ways that people have tried to learn more about so source number 1 talks about how people tried to learn more about the squid. And what you need to do is explain how in source number 2, how people can learn more about pandas. So you're going to write something similar to this. Source number 2 shows us how people tried to observe pandas. So we learned that pandas live alone and are shy. So what people like George Scholar had to do was they had to go to the mountain and they had to wait quietly to observe them. So that's what they had to do. People can also observe them at the zoos, but they might not learn the same things they would in the wild because the animals might act differently. And then the last question we're going to look at right now is Explain why people want to observe animals in the wild. Give two examples, one from source one from source two, and you need to write the source title or number. So that's what I did. I just wrote the number. People want to observe animals in the wild because they can learn different things about them there. For example, in source number one, by observing squid in deep water, we learned that their skin changes color. We would have never known that if we didn't see them in the deep water. And in source number two, we learned that pandas eat a different amount of bamboo in the wild than at the zoo. So, like at the zoo, they're eating bamboo like 16 hours a day, but in the wild, they don't eat that much because they don't have access to that much bamboo and they would have to find it and look for it. So, those are your answers. We're going to go over what you're going to be writing about on Thursday and Friday. So, just use this to help you with questions one, two, and three. If you have any questions, you guys know where I am. All right.